right, we are live. Welcome, everybody. Hopefully, you're enjoying this on the YouTube channel. And my name is Dwayne Netwick. I'm your moderator for this session. And I want to give a warm welcome to Lalit Roat. He is going to give you a session on Azure backup and disaster recovery. So, thank you very much, Lalit, for providing this GIRA session. And I'll take it away.
Thanks, Dan. It's really nice to have this opportunity and then to share my knowledge across the globe, especially specifically to this platform. I'll just walk you through that. So myself, Lalit, I'm a Microsoft MVP for the third time and author of two books. One is Azure Administrations and then Azure Admin Q&A, and then I have been training a lot of people around the world, and then I'm a mentor, blogger. If you would like to connect with me, you can connect me over Twitter or LinkedIn, or you can follow my blog. The details are here, and we'll be starting on that particular session. And this session is going to be a purely hands-on with just 10 minutes of probably just a summary of what Azure Backup and DR does, and then a lot more hands-on into the Azure portal. So as we discuss on Microsoft Azure Backup, what is an Azure Backup? Like generally to back up the storage account, or let's just say to back up the data, or to secure the data while taking a copy from one locations to another locations, right? In terms of general, but in on premises, what are those things? We are storing the data in tapes and then moving from one locations to another locations, right? Now in Microsoft Azure Backup, what are the new features you'll get there, right? You don't have to worry about the data movement, or you don't have to record your data into the tapes and all of those things. But what will happen when you have any stuff which you wanted to back up, right? It simply will go create a recovery services or a backup vault. In that, it does also support the data tiering, storage management, recovery point managements. It also helps you with your monitoring, and it just give you a centralized management. So as and when you enable a backup for your on-premises VMs, or let's just say for your Azure VMs, what is going to be happen? Agent is going and installing into the on-premises VMs, or to the built-in agent is going to install into the backup, and then it's just based on your Azure policies, it's just enabling the backup for your to help with the data backup in terms of your various services, which is coming up into the next slides. So now there are a couple of new features which also come. We'll also talk about on that. In the next slide, I'll show you how the centralized management work in terms of multi-factor authentication, policy management, and what are the categories are there. Now, what could be the Azure features, the backup, which provides you the multiple of features. And I have seen this particular journey of Microsoft Azure Backup when it did support only for the virtual machines, that is to maximum of the 1 terabyte of VM or 1 terabyte of disk, but now it does support up to 64 terabyte of disk or the bigger one, probably in upcoming those things. Now, if you talk about what kind of the workload we can back up, there are certain workloads which is mentioned in there. Let's just say you're on premises, then you have Azure Virtual VM, SQL in Azure, SAP HANA in Azure VMs, file share. Now, what are the new features come up, right? They have recently launched a backup center which has new backups or new database related stuffs which enabled. Let's just say you have a PostgreSQL. How are you going to take the backup for that? Now they have also enabled for the blob storage account. You have a storage account, but you have create a blob or the container. How you're going to take the backup? The features is available in Azure storage account, that you can enable the data protection policies. You can take a snapshots, you can have those things. All of those things are there, but these are some things is literally good. So if you have a SQL on Azure VM, you can take that backup for that specific database. And if you wanted to take a backup for your PostgreSQL, you can take the backup from the backup management and so on. Then you have a data plane, how those data is getting replicated. So there is a data disk which is accessed to the VMs and a complete VM whenever you're going and enabling those things, right? The backups and all of those things, how those things are working. What are the built-in security features you'll have? You'll have RBAC, you'll have encryptions, you have soft deletes. And then when you take the backup is automatically encrypted and provides you end-to-end encryptions until unless you're going to restore. So if you're going to restore, it will decrypt, restore your complete VM, or you can restore a disk also. Even the soft delete feature, which help you if you deleted that backup wantedly, or let's just say unwantedly, you have deleted some backup for the productions. It helps you to recover those deleted VM within your defined policies. It could be a 14 days, it could be a 31 days. Within that, after deleting also, Microsoft will have one copy of the backup when you enable the soft delete features. Now, Azure Backup Vault has new features which enable the GRS applications. So if you have a backup vault which you wanted to, you know, enable a GRS, let's just say if you have a backup in East US and then West US, right? You have configured the GRS backup solutions around it, the storage account. We are going to keep the data, right? The data would be stored in both the places. In as and when you want one region is failure, you can trigger your backup from the another regions and restore the VMs around that geographical locations or based on the availability zone is there. Then we'll have a management plane how you're going to manage your backups, the policies, and all of those things, right? For that, if you wanted to manage some things from the portal, SDK or CLI, that could be your Azure backup policies. You can create a backup policies through your vault or through the backup policies. You can also define the Azure policies, Azure Graph APIs, Azure Monitor, and Azure Lighthouse. You can enable Azure backup from those, as well as you'll have a Azure monitoring services to see whether what are the backup jobs has been failed, what are the backup jobs has been passed, and all of those things. If they are getting failed, why they are getting failed, and they are getting passed, and all of those things. So I have couple more things to in terms of backup explorer. We'll have a backup report, webworks, and so many other stuff which is improved Azure backup into the next level, and many more things is coming up to enable those things. Now, how you're going to take the backup for the SQL databases if you have some VM in which you have installed in Microsoft SQL Server, then whenever you enable a backup, the agent would get installed in that, right? Then there would be a SQL backup extensions which is you can see as a called as a SQL plugin and then coordinator, right? And all of those things. So whenever you start the backup into the you can see in non-business hours, what it's going to do is it's just enabling you to discover those particular databases which you wanted to uh, do a backup, right? Let's just say you wanted to perform a full backup or differential backup or log backup or any other steps. And it does also provide an end-to-end encryptions as well. So this is just an architectural stuff for your Azure SQL backup. Now you have a DR strategy. Uh, there would be multiple of things. DR is nothing but due to planned or unplanned maintenance, you might lose the applications connectivity, or there would be something goes wrong during the patching, or you have some planned activity where you wanted to shut down your applications, or there would be a disaster which might be happen in your place, and you wanted to make sure applications would be running 24 by 7. In that case, you would need a disaster recovery kind of stuff. So I'll be having the lab for this particular VM on IaaS VMs as a primary on-sites. Let's just say I will be utilizing the traffic manager on that part, and then one SQL databases. We are going to configure a site recovery, which will have the blob storage, which is nothing but a cache storage. So when you trigger our applications, it will take ISVM's disk, uh, and it will copy to the blob storage account, basically a disk cache. And whenever you do a failover, it just go and create those VMs around the next regions. Let's just say if you have some VM in East US, and then it's just go and create those stuffs into the West US region. Okay, so I won't take much time around it, and then I'll just start the lab. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask, and don't hesitate on that part. So just give me one sec. Okay. Now, I'm just logging into portal.azure.com, and I'm going to show you how you're going to take the backup of your Azure VMs, right? In that, you would have to have a couple of things to be configured. I'll show you all of those steps now. If I'll just say click on create resource here, and I'll just say backup. Wait, sorry, not that one. Now, if you can see here, right, there are multiple of stuffs which is there, and we'll have a backup centers which is recently launched. Then we'll have a backup items you wanted to say, the backup guards, and then we'll have a backup vaults and site recovery vault. So site recovery vault is used for your DR solutions, whereas in backup centers you can manage your backup centralized. Okay, these are really a couple of good things. And to manage this backup, you wanted to enable the PostgreSQL databases backup. You would need to create one backup vault. Okay, so that is one thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to perform some backup, which I have already created a VM in the recovery vault. So if you wanted to create a recovery vault, what I'm going to do is I'm just clicking on this recovery vault. I'll click on create here. Now let's see, that's into the Azure Labs, and this is my LATAM groups, and then I'll just say LATAM backup DR, and then I'm going to create in the East2. Hit review and create, and your backup vault has been created. Now it also gives you the warning that there are several regions with the support your GRS to be created for the geo-redundant stuffs. Rest they will be created into the ZGRS. So if you can see in this particular documents, you have multiple stuffs on that, and it is going to tell you that how your GRS or ZGRS things will work. That is one part. So now I have already created my DR's backup vault. What I'm going to do is I just wanted to enable the backup. Now what I'm going to do is either I can go in this particular backup and I'll just enable the backup for it. If I wanted to enable the site recovery, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this plus button. Once I'll do that, either I can do it from here or I can select those backup items from here. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just click on this particular backup here, click on that. Now it just asks what are those VMs you wanted to configure, right? That your VM is presented on Azure, or you wanted to configure the VM which is in your stack hub, then the stack HCI, and then to the on premises. There are a couple of things which you wanted to see. If your services are in Azure, you're going to select on Azure. If it is rest of other stuffs, you have to select those things. I'll show you the difference on that part. If you have an on-premises, like in on-premises, what kind of the data backup which you can take, right? It could be your files and folders, it could be your Hyper virtual machines, then VMware virtual machines, your Microsoft SQL databases, your SharePoint site, Exchange. You can take the system state data and bare metal data recovery. These are the multiple steps. These are the multiple things which you can take the backup. If you're just going and selecting that you wanted to have the Hyper-V VM or to the VMware VM, there would be a separate process for that. So if you select that, right, then it will ask you to prepare the infrastructure. In this particular stuffs, you would have to download the Mars agent, and once you download and installed in your VMs, what is going to be do is once you install that, you would have to register this vault, and you will have to click on this and download these credentials. And once it is registered, your infrastructure has been prepared. Now, if you are already using, so what is this in the backend? It's using System Center Data Protection Manager to enable the backup for your virtual machines. Same if you're just going and configuring for your files and folders, right? Same, it would be the same features that you're going to install some services recovery agent and then you're going and registering to it. So these are the multiple things which you have to look out, and if you wanted to enable for on premises, you can do that. But if you have a stack, what are the things at the support? Files and folders, SQL servers, Microsoft SharePoint, and system state. And for that also, I could say the process is same, that you have to install MABS agent and then backup servers to enable those things. Then you'll have Azure Stack CI. In here also, you can have the backup for your files and folders, Microsoft SQL servers, Microsoft SharePoint, system state, and to the virtual machines. As I do not have all of those things, what I'm going to do is I have a Microsoft Azure virtual machines. I'll just click on that. Now, Microsoft has launched a new policy. This is where it's really, really important, right? I have been seeing Microsoft Azure for last almost 10 years, where Microsoft has the data to be backed up once in a day backup. If you wanted to retry that options manually, you might retry for 2 to 3 times, something like that, and the tier just supports on JetRS. And what will happen? Microsoft has announced this particular preview features. If you wanted to enable a VM backup for your multiple times in a day, it's in preview. I'll have your operations tier so up to 30 days and rest of all of those things. Now, this features a per day features. Why it's needed? Because there are so many production servers or the applications that is running on, and we might need to take those backups. Now, if you have a per day backup, let's just say for 24 hours, there could be a one backup, and you took the backup at 11:00, right? And if your VMs got shut down at 9 a.m. next day, you're going to lose your backup for almost 12 hours, or let's just say uh, kind of minimum 8 to 9 hours. Now if you take the multiple of backups and you can schedule, let's just say 4 backup for into 4, right? So you'll have 16, right? So anyways, you are covering a multiple of things. You are covering up the whole day, right? Let's just say if you have a backup you configured at morning 6, and then you configured at 9, then you configured at 12, or probably you configured at 10 o'clock, and kind of those things. So those backups could be your snapshot backups, not a full backup. The first backup which you take is a full backup. Rest would be your, kind of incremental backup. On top of that, it is going to do that, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to take this one. I'm going to create a new backup policies. And why this backup policies is really important, because if you take this backup policies based on your backup policies which we are going to define, right, it will, based on your policies, it's just going and enabling the backup for it. So I took this enhanced policies. Now it will ask hourly, daily, or weekly. I'll just say hourly. And then when your backup is going to start, I'll just say 10 a.m. How many hours? Every 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, and 12 hours, right? So you'll have every 4 hours backup, which covers your durations up to 12 hours, or probably you wanted to cover up for 24 hours, right? So every 4 hours, it's just going to take the backup, and then here you're going and selecting your time zone where you have VMs has been created. Now, if you wanted to come here, right, you can have the retention policies, which is by default is 30 days, and if you wanted to maximize, it's going to be a triple line days, or could be more. Just give you a max for double line. Just wanted to show you that what could be your max backup policies in terms of daily backup. Similarly, for if you wanted to configure for years, that's going to be a 99 years, I guess. Yep. If I'll say 100, I'm just going to throw us an error. So there are multiple of things which you can enable your backup, retentions your backup, weekly backup. You can retain your monthly backup. Even you can retain your yearly backup, either the weekly wise or a day basis. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to create one. I'm just taking, okay, this is the one, enable this backup. Now it's asking us to have the VMs here. I'm going to take one of those VMs to enable the backup. Let's say enable this one for the VMDR2. It just start validating, right? Now OS disk only backup. Now it's giving you an options whether you wanted to take OS only backup or you wanted to take a complete data disk backup. So I'm just going and leaving this default. I'm going to enable the backup for now. And enabling the backup will take a couple more minutes to enable it. In the meanwhile, what I'm going to do is you can see the jobs and everything is getting started here, and it's going and deploying the agent. It's just going to do multiple stuffs there and enabling the backup for that particular VM. We'll come into that part. So if you can see, this is start installing, accepted, and all of those things. In the meanwhile, I'll just walk you through how this backup vault works, right? In this particular backup vault, if you wanted to enable your identity, let's just say you wanted to authenticate some of the applications, or you wanted to have a system assigned identity or user assigned identity, you can do it from here. You can also enable the private endpoint for the various services you wanted to take the backup. So private endpoint basically helps you in one-on-one connections between two services. I'll show you just for the example to create one endpoint where I'll just give some name around it and then we'll click on next. It's just asking me for the resource. So these are the services which I can take it up. I'll just say virtual machine, or if I wanted to take, a SQL servers and kind of other stuffs, I can enable for that also. So I'll just say compute and then that's it. Now it will ask for the resources. I don't have any resources for now in this particular region. And then you can select the virtual network and DNS. You can create the private endpoint, and it certainly helps to enable the security. Then the properties, it's really important, because if you wanted to enable multi-user authentications for your backup, you would have to configure something. But if you wanted to enable a diagnostic settings for your backup for the reporting purpose, you can click on this particular stuffs in terms of diagnostics. You can click on all of those logs where you wanted to send the data. Either wanted to send the data to log analytics or to archive storage. I'll just say archive to the storage or the stream hub and all of those things. I'm going to select this is my storage account, and I'm going to save this stuff. Then I'll give you the name of the diagnostics is say backup report. I'm going to click yes, and that will take a couple of minutes to update those things. Now that is the one part. Then if I come into this, my storage account has been configured. It will take around 48 hours, something like that. There would be an encryption settings, how my data is going to encrypt, right? By default is use Microsoft managed key, if you see here, right? But if your customer is healthcare, if your customer is finance and they wanted to manage their own key, right? You can click in saying that this box saying that I wanted to manage my own key. And then you have to give this particular key URI for your key vault, or you can select the key vault here and configure it. There are two steps. You can select your key vault from there. So you can say key, say this is the one, and then you can either you can create a new key or you can manage the HSM. Whatever it is possible, you wanted to do it, create it, you can select, and once you do this, click to use infrastructures for your vault, and you will be able to enable the backup, and you will be able to encrypt end to end using your own encryptions. Now if you wanted to do some kind of let's just say download an agents, or you wanted to update the backup configurations here. So here is two things. One is geo redundant, that's disabled now. If you wanted to enable, once you enable, you cannot the backup is already performed, you will not be able to disable. So this settings is going to be changed. Sorry, the settings is going to be changed once in a while. Okay, once you enable the backup, you're not going to change those things at all. So I'm not going to do anything because the backup is already running, that might impact things. Then you can already generate a pin, and you can have a monitoring status which you wanted to enable for your backup, Azure monitoring alerts and all. Then in that, I'll see how you wanted to go in that part. Then if you have enabled the backup for your multiple of services, here you are going to see this virtual machines backups is here. Then we'll have our replicated items. What are the VMs you're going to replicate in that part? For DR, you can create a backup policies well in advance, either through the different portal or here it's your backup policies for your virtual machines or backup policies for the services. You can do it from the multiple ways. If you wanted to configure backup infrastructures, it's for here. You can do that. You can create a management backup servers as well. Now, all the backup jobs, you can see all of those backup jobs status here that we have already configured the backup. The site recovery jobs would be here, right? I'm going to show you the backup vault which I have already created a long back. So in that, what I'm going to do is I'll show you something there. Now this is the recovery vault services which I created, and this is the one which you can see the replicated item and all of those things. So one VM, and there are multiple stuffs which you can do it. So if I'll click on SQL VM on Azure, yesterday I have just configured this databases. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that how you're going to add your backup item on SQL databases. Now this is the second level which I'm going to do is I'll click on backup. Every process is the same process. I'll just say SQL Server on Azure VM. Right now, I'm going to discover that what are the virtual machines we have. It will take some time to discover further in that part. Sometimes it might take some. Sometimes it will take a few minutes to discover all of those things because the agent might be busy or something like that. So I have two VMs. One is DRVM1 and then DRVM2. I'll select DRVM1. I'll just say discover databases, and I'm going and configuring this backup. Once I'll click here, it just asks us to enable add the databases. So I have this particular SQL database instance which is on your VM. I'm going to enable the backup for LATAM learn. I'll click on OK. So now there's one thing. The first backup which I showed you is for VM. The second backup is for your SQL DB, which I'm going to configure. Right. So there are two differences. This SQL database is inside the virtual machines. On top of that, there is virtual machines and SQL databases inside. So I'm going in enabling this particular backup for my databases. I can, create a new policies. When I create a new policies, there are multiple things I can set up for transactional and kind of other databases related stuffs. So every backup you would have to configure your own backup policies and all. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the backup centers. Till that time backup is getting enabled. Microsoft has come up with the backup centers where you're going to manage your backups centrally. It will show you your backup schedules, it will show you the progress, incomplete, what are the backup instances you have, right, and so on. And if I'll click on backup instance, right, here is only one VM which is into the protections which I have already enabled for that. What are the backup policies I have created so far? What are the backup vaults? So I have one backup vault, three site recovery vault, which I have created, and I can create more from here. What are the backup jobs? Would be here as one backup jobs which is completed. Right? You can see if there are any errors. You can see all of those errors there. I'll show you those errors. Then, if you wanted to enable the backup report, from backup centers, you have those backups reports to be enabled. As of now, you won't see anything because I've just enabled the backup. Might ask for the backup locations and subscriptions and all of those things because it will take minimum 24 hours to get those data around it. You'll also have multiple of things in terms of backup compliance. You can create the backup compliance policies. You can create the policies for backup, right? If you wanted to enable the backup for your virtual machines, there are multiple of things. You wanted to tag some things. You wanted to enable the site recovery vault. You wanted to enable private endpoint, and all of those things are there. So you can enable those stuffs from the backup centers. Then I'll have a protected data sources. What are the VMs has been protected? What are their data source from which VMs it's in? And all of those things you will be having here. Now I have already enabled for one VM. I'll go and click on backup. I'll select the recovery vault, right? So I'll just say LATAM backup one, and I'll click on continue. So now what I'm going to do is I'll just show you the backup for your, you can see the blob storage account and then Postgres. I'll show you the couple of steps for the Postgres and then I'll come into the backup vault. Here we have to select the backup vault which I have created. In PostgreSQL database, a little tough in terms of other backup. Here we are going to add the data source or the databases which wanted to take the backup. I'll select two, and now the magic is start. The magic is you wanted to enable a key vault. You wanted to select the key vault. Here, and then you would have to have some key. Once you select, you will it'll ask to update, and then it's just going and pre-validating all of those stuffs. There would be some limitations into my subscriptions. I could not validate those steps. But once you validate it, you can click on next, and you can enable your PostgreSQL databases backup. That is only the one thing which you can do it. But rather than waiting here, what we can do, we'll just move to the next one. So if you can see, there is some authentications related stuffs which, though even I have updated the key and all, it's not getting there. I'll go and fix that out. So how it is clearly defining what could be the error. It's an authentication related error. It does not match the credentials. I might miss some of those things. If you wanted to cancel, just cancel it. The second one, which I just wanted to show you, the features which is for Azure Disk as well as for your blob storage. If I'll click on Azure Disk, click on next, I'll have disk. It will ask for your selected key vault or vault, backup vault. I'll click on next, and that backup policies which I have to create for disk backup. For individual services, there would be no separate backup policies. So I'll just say LATAM disk and click on next. Whether you need hourly or daily, every hour one, two, two, 3, 4, or 12 hours. I'll click on next, review and create. So I'm not going to create that one because I have already shown you the process and would like you to know. You can do it in your lab and that will, literally help on that part. So that is the one part which you can do it and you would have some limited time as well. That is the one which you can do it. And if I'll click on next, and again it will ask the same steps. I can see I have a multiple of disks, right? I'll say this is the data disk, select. Now I'll just ask you the which subscriptions you wanted. I'll just say this one. The resource group, the snapshot for the resource group you wanted to take it. And if I click on next, it's asking for the role assignment is not done. So to perform these options, probably I would have to, provide some managed identity access for this particular disk, and then only it is going to take the backup. If you can see that you cannot take the backup like this because they have lots of security features which is enhanced there. So once you do that, what you can do, you can enable the data backup. Now, if you wanted to do it for a blob storage, I'll click on next. I'll select the vault. I'll click on next. And then there's a policies which is already created. I'll click on this particular storage account. Then it's just going and validating and passing those operational stuffs and all of those things. It's just validating the data whether I would trying to connect to the same storage account and how it is. If not, it might throw out an error. So whenever the my learning on that particular when I'm preparing for the lab is you would have to assign right size of role assignment for your services to enable those backups. If you don't do it at or you wanted to allow this particular backup centers or the backup vault to have right permissions at least for read access to get those blob storage account and all of those things. Here also the same things which you can do it under this. It just give you the permissions and all.
Think we might have lost audio from Lalit. Are you there, Lalit? Oh, looks like we dropped him. We'll give him a second and see if he comes back on. If not, we will just draw this session to a close. We're getting to the top of the hour anyway, but let's give him a minute to see if he makes his way back on. Thanks everybody for their patience. All right, you back, Lala? Oh, I'll get you back in there.
I'm really sorry. Thank you so much for putting
No
there.
problem.
I'm really sorry. I
No
was
problem.
just
If you can, you want to
yeah.
share again? You want to share again, or and we'll pick
I'll
back
do
up?
that. Yep. Hope you are able to view my screen.
Yep, there you are. All right, you're
Thank you.
back.
So before this internet got disrupted, I was into the backup center and I have helped you with this multiple of those things, steps and all. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to enable things for your recovery vault, right? You wanted to enable a DR policies, services and all. There are two ways which you can do it. One is, let's say, go to the virtual machines. If you wanted to enable for IS VMs, you can select the VM that is already there, right? Now you can come and in the operational blade, you'll go and click on the disaster recovery. Once you can do that, there are various reasons, or you can say the availability zones are there which you can configure. Either you can go to the West US or West US 2. I'll select the West US. And then you can select on the advanced settings here. Here you can select your subscriptions. If you wanted to migrate to the next subscriptions, you can do that. There is no restrictions around it. Okay, that also you can do that. But I'm going to do it on the same subscriptions. Then you have a VM resource group, VNet, which you wanted to create a single instance. And this is not needed. And if you wanted to, reserve some kind of capacities and all of those things, you can do that. Then there are storage account which has been configured. Then you have our application policies around it which you can configure. You can create new one. You can have agent extensions which will be managed by your ASR services and all. So you can select whether you're going to manually manage or ASR will manage automatically. And then you're going to click on start applications. This is the one part. Now I'll go to the recovery vault. I'll select the recovery vault. I'll enable the site recovery from here. And it's just clearly asking what you wanted to protect. Do you want to protect in Azure virtual machines or VMware, or there would be no Hyper-V in the down? So if you can see Hyper-V in the down, right? So what do you want it to protect? It could be Azure virtual machines or on-premises virtual machines and how it is. Once you select one of them, I'll just say you wanted to enable for your VMs. That could be an East US, and then I'll select the source resource group would be this, and then I'll click on next. Now it'll ask for me a virtual machines. I'll just say, let's just select VM DR2. I can do one thing. I can either target the second subscriptions or the first subscriptions as I've shown in my earlier steps. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, if you wanted to customize this whole, I will have my own stuffs here. I can create a source group target. I can select all of those things. Storage account, it could be cache storage account, it could be LRS or RAGRS, all of those things I can select. Single instance, then target proximity, and all of those things I can do that. So now I'm just going to replicate the disk. This is one part. Now if I'll go in, click on customized application policies, That is 24 hours retention policies. Retentions would be for how many days? I can have for 30 days if I want, or probably just for the 15 days. Period 15 days max. Multi, do you want to enable multi VM consistencies? If I say yes, there would be a certain steps which I wanted to know. What could be the applications group name? Either it could be the same VMs and all. For now, I don't need it. I'm not going to modify all of those things because that will take certainly some time. Now, I'll just click on enable applications with the default settings, right? And I just go and perform multiple tasks, including it is just going and installing your agents around it. Once that is done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you all of those things. Then the deployment is success. Now it's going to create the principal, service principal. Then it's just going and enabling the ASR agent to installing the ASR agent in a couple of steps, which is doing. I have already done it in one of the recovery vault in my uh, previous one part, but I got some error. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going and selecting this one backup vault here. If I'll click on site recovery and replicated item here, I would have one replicated item, but it's critical here because I'm just going and installing some things. That job is still running, but I can click on this particular VM, right? That is some error which is going on, and then the application's health is critical because my applications is not yet started. But if you can see all of those steps here, it's are healthy and that you can get those all of those alerts why this application's health has changed, manage identity, permissions are not there. You're going to does not have permissions for the storage account, that particular disk. The detailed messages are there. If you wanted to work out on those parts and you just enable those access for them, just going and enabling all of those things. Once this backup is enabled, this if you can see failover, test failover, cleanup test failover, all of those highlighted or probably you can say the disabled windows would be enabled and you can do that. So once it is enabled, you can click on the failover. The first steps to do a test failover. Once you do, you are going to verify your applications. Then the second step, you're going to do a cleanup test and then you are going to perform the final failover. Once you do this final failover, right, it'll automatic failover all of those steps, right, and then your services will be up and running. The commit is some things. Let's just say recently you took the backup, but the next backup is or the application is corrupted. So now you committed that you wanted to recover earlier snapshots. Then you have a resynchronize. Once you do the final failover, you wanted to do a resynchronize to enable the backup for best US to east US. That's where you wanted to resynchronize all of this data and put it into cache drives. You wanted to change recovery point of object, or once you do a final failover, you wanted to reprotect your VMs to this particular recovery vault you can utilize. And if you wanted to delete your applications, you can click on disable applications. It will ask you the justifications. You do that here, you can get the error details and then you can refresh. This is one part. Now, in the properties, if you can see, though even the applications is in progress, you have all of those steps here. Now, if you wanted to upgrade your compute, what are the things you're going to do? You can click on this edit. As the application is not yet started, you cannot edit this one, but all of the compute settings will come here. The networking settings would be here, what are the virtual networks, and that disk would be here. If you wanted to upgrade also, you can do that. There's no issues around it. And once you have that, everything is ready, you are done. I'm not sure whether the any backup which we have done for this particular it got success or just got failed because of something. So the backup DR which we have enabled the replicated item for that. It's I think it's still going on. But if you can see that particular VM you wanted to the backup has been already enabled. It's paused. All of those things. You click on details. Now you can take the backup now. Once this backup is done, let us say you wanted to enable this particular backup, you can enable the backup now. And then once this backup is done, you wanted to recover this particular VM, you can do that. Even you can include your only the file recovery services. If you wanted to stop the VMs, you can do that. You wanted to pause the VMs, or let's just say backup has been paused, you wanted to do it, you can do it. And then you wanted to enable into the secondary region, that is also now possible. The one more region which I told you is soft delete. If you wanted, if you deleted something, it will go into the it will go into the soft delete, and then you'll have to click on undelete and it will restore that particular backup. And that's how the things will work. And that's where I'm just going to bind up this session. If you guys has any questions, any queries, anything, you can always reach out to us. I'll happy to help you. I wanted to show you some things in terms of the traffic managers. So what I have done is I've also configured the traffic managers to enable the particular backup for this. So once I do the failover, what I'm going to do is I'm going to configure and adding one more service endpoint. It could be your Azure endpoint. I'm giving the name, let's just see, DR and the cloud services. Here, I'll just say a public IP because in the VM I have a public IP, and then I can select one of those VM's IP. The public IP address DNS name should be added before you're going to add all over here. As I have already added this one endpoint, what I'm going to do is I'll just show you how this is going to work. I'll just put the traffic manager one. Behind there is a VM. On that, I have installed the IaaS server. So now if I'll click on that, I'm not sure whether my VM is shut down or whatsoever because I got an alert on that part. So this encryption is on progress. And I would say so if you can see, right, my VM is deallocated. I'm just going to restart now and then that particular stuffs will work, the traffic managers and all of those things. So there are multiple things which you can take over the new backups which is coming up in your organizations. If you're putting some things in your productions, you wanted to enable multiple things which you can do it, and so many other stuffs you can enable 24 backup for every 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours or 12 hours. You can reduce the latency, you can save your data, you can save your RTO, you can save your RPO, you can do configure a disaster recovery and so on. With that, I have so many more things to cover up in this particular sessions, but I don't think so we have much time around it. It's been an hour, and probably we're just going to wind up this particular sessions. So if you can see, once I have enabled this VM, the traffic managers once is working. So that's it from my session. If you like the sessions, if you wanted to, have some query, you can always reach out to me on Lalit01 Rawat at the rate on Twitter, and then LinkedIn, and then my blogs and books. If you wanted to read it about, you can do that.
Great job, Lalit. Thank you very much for a great and informative session. I love the full demo session there, just showing how we can back up and have disaster recovery utilizing Azure. Very powerful tool. So appreciate you providing the session on that. Definitely a lot of value there for everybody to go back even after and watch and learn and step through everything. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
And thanks everybody for attending today. There will be more sessions tomorrow. So hopefully I will also be moderating a couple of sessions. So I hope to see everybody back online and viewing again tomorrow. Until then, thanks everybody and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much, and it's been a wonderful opportunity. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.